So as you know, friend of mine, watcher of this YouTube channel, I always like to be a positive Pete because we don't want to be a negative Nancy. But sometimes wrestling throws something in your path and you try and digest it and you try and access it as best you can, but your brain keeps going, oh my gosh, what the hell was that? So there is just a small spoiler about what you can expect over the next 10, 15 or 20 minutes. But before we get there, make sure you go over to the WhatCulture Wrestling YouTube poll and vote for this week's Retro Ups and Downs. And your choices are WrestleMania 17. I'm just going to push that one off. It doesn't win soon. SummerSlam 1992, the Royal Rumble 1992, and kind of oddly, WCW Halloween Havoc 97. But yeah, take your ass, sit it in that chair. We got to up those downs for Raw. You in for a doozy. Oh man, the start to Raw was awful. I hate saying stuff like that for all the reasons we just touched upon, but not only did we have that stupid interruption during the WWE opening graphic that actually made me go, this is just annoying. This is just annoying. The first thing we found out as Retribution were making their way into a WWE ring is that World Wrestling Entertainment has signed them to contracts. What the flum? So you have this renegade group and your decision is to hire them to be in your employment. Why? Also, from a Retribution standpoint, they want to kill the WWE. Why the hell would they take a bit of pen and paper and go, oh, la-di-da, I'll put my name there. They were talking about other wrestlers being whores during their opening promo, and they're not my words, they are theirs. But they've done exactly the same thing. Also, last week, I thought it was insinuated that they were people from NXT, so surely they've already signed the deal. You know what? It then got even more confusing because the Hurt Business came out to confront them, and one, Retribution just ran away, so, oh, you're really threatening and scary, can't even handle 4 people walking towards you. And 2, I now think the Hurt Business are meant to be the good guys, meaning Cedric Alexander turned heel 2 weeks ago, but now he's turned back. It just hurts my brain. Eventually, Retribution did take them out because a bunch of other people in masks came, but they're not signed to WWE, but the 5 core guys are. And then after we had come back from a commercial break, the commentators were just going, hey, take a look at this amazing sponsor we've got. So they didn't even care. Honestly, this whole thing hasn't been great, and now it's just fallen off a cliff, and I still ask you, what do they want? Why are they here? I don't know. Because apparently it's to bring the WWE down, but now they're signing WWE contracts. They may as well have gone, we want a lifetime supply of donuts, because that would have made as much sense, and also then I get to see a donut on my television, and I really like donuts. They're delicious. Down. We then went to the back with Rey Mysterio and family, and they're all excited because Dominic Mysterio is going to be teaming with Humberto Carrillo later to challenge for the tag team title #1 contendership. Why the hell not? It was then time for that match to see who the Street Profits were going to fight at Clash of Champions, and I think I melted down. Like that witch in The Wizard of Oz. What was poured in me? I was like, I'm melting because I can't figure out what we're doing. Does WWE think I just didn't watch last week, or that I got Men in Black flashy thingied, and I don't remember what happened, so you can do, that's not how it works. As well as Dommy Boy and Chumberto, the other 2 teams were Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, who fell out 7 days ago, and Andrade and Angel Garza, who, oh, that's right, literally fell out 7 days ago. Furthermore, why are Dominic and Humberto teaming? I don't think I've seen Carrillo for around about 2 months. And he just walks up to Raw and goes, can I have a tag team title shot, please? And Adam Pearce, I suppose, goes, yeah, okay. It just happens. And the winner, too, I just can't take anymore. Now, I do want to say Dominic was brilliant once again, so I've decided we should push him to the moon and just give him all the titles. But after Seth Rollins had just walked out on Murphy, and how stupid did Murphy look here? Anybody could have seen that coming, even Rey Mysterio with his one eye. Anyway, he got hit by the wing clipper. Angel Garza pinned him, which means at the pay-per-view, for the 72,944 time, we have to see this match. Angel Garza and Andrade taking on the Street Profits. I don't want to see it anymore. Please don't make me. All I can think is that these 2 have lewd pictures of Vince McMahon, and they've said to him, if you don't keep putting us in tag team title matches, we're going to release him. Vince, no one's going to care. I promise you, even if it comes out this is the case, we'll just be so pleased that we don't have to witness this anymore. We'll just move past it. We won't do anything. Getting it down. Retribution were then cutting a promo using words that no human being would ever say, saying the Hurt Business are idiots for taking WWE's money, even though they have just signed a deal and they are taking WWE's money. These words come out of my mouth. I don't make this up. Next up was the Kevin Owens show, and I want to make it clear, I think this man is great. You could give him an apple and say, go turn that into an award-winning program, and he would find a way, but sometimes some of the stuff you give him really is not very fair. Unfortunately though, this was average at best, and it wasn't even his fault. For you see, his guest was going to be Shane McMahon, and thankfully WWE did reference their past, so Kevin was like, well, I don't like you, and Shane McMahon was like, well, I don't like you either, but Shayna was here to promote and advertise Raw Underground. How is that? I'm already watching Raw. You don't go to watch a new Mission Impossible movie and the trailer beforehand says, you should see Mission Impossible. You're like, I'm here, I've got my stinking popcorn. McMahon then brought out Dabba Kato, and Owens was all like, I knew you'd do this, so I've told Braun Strowman to be here as well. And they started starting to scuffle. And then throughout all this fracas, Pirate Aleister Black turned up, he tripped Kevin Owens up, and he just pulled his groin, his penis, into the post 3 times. And that is what happened. And at this stage, I was like, you know what? I don't think this is a very good Raw. Drew McIntyre was then backstage cutting a promo because, of course, he has another match with Keith Lee later. And everyone's like, oh, you're not going to be friends anymore. And Drew McIntyre did the whole, everybody wants this belt. If you're in the company, you don't want the belt, you shouldn't be in the company. But then said after he does beat Keith Lee, they'll go out for drinks. Probably should after this mess. We also saw Retribution beating up Titus O'Neil and Humberto Carrillo, so I bet he was well happy he got the call to come back to Raw, and I will presume they were doing so because they wanted their milk money. The second hour then began, and it actually was Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre, so finally we had some good wrestling. These are 2 talented dudes. It can have it up. Alas, WWE clearly didn't have a clue what to do here, meaning they shouldn't have booked the match in the first place, so they just had a meeting and must have gone, do you know what? Why don't we just do exactly what we did before? So we did. The point is, Keith kept hesitating when Drew McIntyre was down because he was worried about his jaw. And I know this is said too much, but just putting it out there, would we ever have had Stone Cold Steve Austin hesitate? No, we would not. And eventually Drew hit him with the Claymore kick when Randy Orton appeared with the chair and he smashed up Drew and he kicked Keith Lee in the head. And I was just like, oh boy, gee whiz. And I know in the past, I've said I was fine with this, but there's always a line, there's always a point of no return, and we are now past that. Poor Keith Lee just looks like he either wins matches by fluke or he's going to lose, and oh, thankfully, somebody's there by accident. Afterwards, Orton then grabbed a microphone and said that he loves ambulances because it reminds him of all the victims that he's put in one, and that come Sunday, Drew McIntyre will be the next guy and he'll become a 14-time world champion. Now, Randy was really good here, but unfortunately, too much nonsense had already happened, and I couldn't get into it in the way that I usually would. Down. It was just the most confusing segment with Oscar next because she was being interviewed here and the question was, who do you think is a bigger threat for your title, Mickie James or Zelina Vega? And I was like, but last week we'd already moved past Mickie James and we'd said that Zelina Vega was the new #1 contender. But no, apparently not. And then Billie Kay arrived and went, oi mate, I want to have a title shot, before Peyton Royce was there going, no, I want to have a title shot instead. And then they acted like they were still friends. And I had to load up the segment on YouTube when the Iconics broke up to make sure that I hadn't dreamed it. And why would you be buddy-buddy when a few weeks ago Peyton Royce took Billie Kay and threw her in the Lion's Den, aka Raw Underground? Shrug emoji. Zelina Vega then did beat Mickie James. Now I presume we did this because we had all that controversy with the finish last week, but it still didn't help matters at all. Now thankfully, Vega did win clean after the backcracker, but I couldn't get into this. It doesn't make any sense anyway. As we said, Zelina lost to Bianca Belair a couple of months ago and then has just been a manager and a mum to Andrade and Angel Garza, and now she's in this position. And nobody ever mentions Bianca Belair, either do they? Actually, thankfully, there was a video after this proving she is still alive, still down. And that little package was pretty good too. Bianca was out working some dude in a gym, and I really like Bianca Belair, but again, in terms of the context of how this is presented, why did she go poof and vanish? And why now is she out working some dude in a gym? Because why not? The Hurt Business were then beating up the nobody members of Retribution, which is like going after the Foot Clan when you know the location of Shredder and Krang, and then Tozawa Tozawa got eaten by a shark. I was going to try and not to laugh this bit. I can't help it. That's what happened. We cut to a beach. Tozawa got eaten by a shark, and R-Truth ran away because he was scared of the shark. I take it all back. This was the greatest episode of Raw ever. I mean, it wasn't. Who wrote this? They must have just been on a bunch of drugs, or they got a child in. They got a 12-year-old child in and said, what would you really like to see? And the kid was like, I really want to see someone get eaten by Jaws. And they made this dream come true. The Hurt Business were then back, or at least MVP and Cedric Alexander were, because as we were told, Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley are going to hang out in the back because our main event is going to be the Hurt Business taking on Retribution. So that's what Retribution wanted. They just wanted a 6-man tag team match on Monday Night Raw. Why didn't you just give Teddy Long a call? He would have hooked you up. Alexander made it clear that he didn't care about Apollo Crews or his kids, because I guess Apollo Crews did mention his kids on that one Raw. And then Apollo Crews and Ricochet are out and they said, we don't care about you anymore, Cedric Alexander. We just want to beat you up. Okay. Thankfully, it was Apollo Crews versus Cedric Alexander, and it was good. Up. And this just comes down to the fact they're both really good workers in the ring, but on this episode of Raw, nothing was allowed to go unblemished because it ended with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. And Cedric Alexander looked like a right goof here because he got in Ricochet's face. He was like, I don't like you anymore. And then from afar, Crews like spied his ass. So he grabbed said ass and he rolled him up. And like I say, he got the 1, 2, 3. Bring it down. That's number 78. We're going to get past 100 before the end of 2020. And it gets a down. Why can't I just have real winners and real losers? The rest of the Hurt Business then ruined Apollo and Ricochet, so they are both good guys and bad guys, which would be fine if it was part of some kind of plan. It absolutely is not. Raw Underground was next. Down we go. Now, as I always say, I just enjoy the presentation. So here we got Dolph Ziggler versus some dude, and then later on we got Riddick Moss versus Eric from the Viking Raiders. It just tickles me. It just does. I like these real kind of fights as everybody wears their jeans. So all of that is going to get it up. What was really odd is that Shane McMahon was then trying to interview Braun Strowman, who has always just lost his temper on a whim. It's like, what do you want? And then there was someone there called Brandy. Maybe I meant to know who that is, but I don't. And Shane went, you try and do it. And Braun must have liked Brandy because he was like, well, I will tell you, I'm going to wreck everyone. And as I've said before, I'm going to send them home to their mummies with teeth in their pocket. Braun, do not have a party bag that has people's teeth in it. No one's ever going to be allowed to come to another one of your shindigs. He also threatened to beat up Shane in Raw Underground for... I have absolutely no idea. And now I don't know what to do because it's everything I've already said in relation to this episode. But Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio, I think up to this point has been really good. But if you've run out of ideas, just stop it. Nobody is going to mind. What you don't need to do is step into a time machine and go all back to the future on our asses. I mean, it was like, I thought Doc Brown was going to turn up and go, Marty, it turns out Ray isn't actually the father of Dominic. And then Marty would be like, what are you talking about, Doc? And he would go, well, it means we have to go back to the future. Because yeah, Seth Rollins was out here with an envelope and he accused Dominic Mysterio of not being the kid of Rey Mysterio. And if you've been a long-time watcher of wrestling, calm down. If you've been a long-time watcher of wrestling, you know we have already done this. But yes, that is the deal. Even though this was a major storyline with Eddie Guerrero and Rey back in the day, Rollins came out and said, Dominic, you're taller than your father, therefore I don't believe you're related. I have the DNA test results and haha, I know I'm correct. And nobody would believe him because Seth Rollins is a walking madman that likes to host a cult. The Mysterio family were out there as well, and credit where credit is due. Rey, even when you give him ludicrous stuff, is able to pull it off because he's such a good babyface. And when Rollins got annoyed that they weren't believing him, he said, oh, well, maybe it's not Dominic, maybe it's your daughter, Aaliyah, instead. And then Rey was just so wound up about this, he said, leave her out, she's only 19, she doesn't understand this business. And for some reason, she got really upset by that. At least we can justify it. She's a teenager. Teenagers always getting mad. But she walked off. Seth Rollins pretended he was absolutely devastated. And that's the recap. If you're going, none of that made sense, I know, I watched it too. It would have been better if this was a Back to the Future sequel, even though, you know, that would have died at the box office, because a mainstream audience would be like, who's Seth Rollins? And who's Rey Mysterio? They went in Back to the Future Part 3. Point is, down. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax then beat Lana and Natalya in around about 1 minute. Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott were on commentary going, oh, we're better friends than they are. And I was like, I don't care if you're friends or if you're not friends. And after the match, Lana got put through another table. And this is starting to feel a little bit mean-spirited but I hope I'm wrong. Lana was also the person that tapped out after Baszler got her in the Kirifuda clutch, and also afterwards, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott tried to stand up to these two, but they legged it because they were so scared of Shayna. They are going to be killed at Clash of Champions. Can you believe it? Down. McIntyre was then in the back icing his jaw, and he said he's going to beat the piss out of Randy Orton at the pay-per-view. And please, at the moment, I'm worried that WWE may do that literally. I don't want to see anybody's piss flying around the place. And then we were back with the Mysterios, and Aaliyah is really mad. She was like, this Seth Rollins guy, he's off the reins, Dad, and it's all your fault. And she's kind of right. It was back downstairs next to Raw Underground, and we had the other match that we've already talked about, but also the response from Dabba Kato, who also just kind of went, I will show you what I do to Braun Strowman later on. Though I actually thought he was quite decent. And I was like, oh man, if he beats Braun, what a cool thing this would be. I kind of like Dabba Kato. More fool me. The Iconics were then back together. I'm not even kidding. Billie Kay was in Peyton Royce's corner as she took on Asuka. So when you got invested in them breaking up a few weeks ago, what you should have done is taken your hand and just slapped yourself around the face. It would have been a better use of your time. Down. The match ended in a DQ too. Zelina Vega just ran down when Peyton Royce was going to lose, and that was it. It was a disqualification, because it's always a disqualification. You wake up, disqualification. You have your breakfast, disqualification. You go home, disqualification. You go to bed, disqualification. We may as well call it WWE DQ. Murphy then said sorry to Aaliyah, and we're clearly teasing that we're going to do some kind of relationship angle here. Although, look, this is basically based on Romeo and Juliet, right? Two warring families and then two people fall in love. Just follow that template, and it may not actually be the dumpster fire I'm expecting it to be. I didn't mean to be that strong. This was just such a terrible episode of Raw. I'd also love to tell you that it is going to be something, but I don't know. Next week, maybe Murphy comes out and sacrifices her to a llama. Like, that's the kind of stuff we got this week. It was just all so random. So next week, that's what I expect. All hail the llama. And then after a week of build and using all of these Raw segments to continually hype it up, Braun Strowman just knocked Dabba Kato out in 2 minutes. Why don't we want to build new stars? Why wouldn't we have given Dabba Kato the win here? Braun Strowman doesn't need to win. Nobody cares about Braun Strowman. And that's not a knock on Braun. He's just not doing much of anything right now. We could have done... I'm done. I have no words. Just gonna, you know what, just do it, just down. Our main event was next, and although it was a night of shenanigans and absolute madness, Retribution versus the Hurt Business ended in a disqualification. So in Retribution's first match, which wasn't advertised and was just thrown on television, it ended in a DQ, because of course, WWE DQ. This has got to be a record. It's got to be a record. It's in here somewhere. There it is. Down. However, the absolute best part, I'll try not to laugh again, but the absolute best part is that we learned some of the names of the Retribution members, and I was right. I was right earlier when I said Doc Brown must have gone back to the future, because these were right out of 1955. Because they are called T-Bar, Mace, and Slapjack. Slapjack. And what, these the characters from Streets of Rage? And what are the rest of the dudes going to be called? Like Wild Eyes, Lunchbox, or I don't know, Stud Rock. You have no idea how much I laugh. So from now on, they are going to be T-Bar Row, Mace Window, and just Slapjack. You don't have to change Slapjack at all. Slapjack. I swear that was a lyric from that Red Hot Chili Peppers song, you know, Slapjack, boom, 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 boom. I mean, it wasn't, but that's what came into my brain. We also need WWE to clarify their stupid rules, because even though we've seen interference in tag team matches around about 102 million times, here, when Bobby Lashley had, I don't know, T-Bar or Mace or one of them in the Lashley lock, somebody else then just punched him, and because he wasn't a legal man, the referee said, oh, that's it, it's a disqualification. Think how many times you've seen people break up pins or do interference on the outside, but today, we just decided we're not allowed to do it anymore. The loser section of Retribution were then out there to try and create more carnage, but Drew McIntyre led the Raw locker room to try and get some balance, and then even throughout all this fracas, sometimes McIntyre was just alone in the ring, and he got RKO'd by Randy Orton. And if you're asking yourself once again, well, where did Retribution go? I have no clue. They just disappeared. If we find out that this entire episode of Raw was called On the Fly, I will not be surprised. And I hate to be so negative, but I mean, what did you want me to do? If you watched it, surely you're scratching your head as well. None of it made any sense, and I can't believe it was a go-home show for Clash of Champions. I mean, what the hell is going to happen there? But overall, I have all the confidence in the world that it's a down. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about that absolute craziness. Like the video, share video, subscribe, go to the YouTube community page, vote for Retro Ups and Downs. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read more articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter, WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. I'm going to lay down.